People who live in chocolate cities, like my little burg of Wilmington, Delaware, they often take a kind of perverse pride in these lists that come out frequently, or these magazine stories that come out frequently that name this city or that city the most dangerous city in America. That's what happened in Wilmington not too long ago when Newsweek had a cover story that said where they declare Wilmington, Delaware was Murder Town, USA. So as you can imagine, this was the subject of some conversation on local TV and radio over the following couple weeks. And I turned on one of the local public access channels, and I saw the editor of the editorial page of the local paper, a Gannett Daily. Good Lord, Gannett has awful newspapers. Anyway, and he was about to be interviewed by a black person, by another black person who was the host of the show, a guy who I happen to know and met many times. Anyway, so the host of the show brought up the topic of Murder Town, USA. And this guy from Gannett, I think he might have been new in town or something. I think he was. But he reminded the host of the show that, oh no, you think Wilmington's bad? You've never been to, I think he said Evanston, Illinois or something where he was from. He goes, man, that's really dangerous there. You know, it's like, oh, that's way more dangerous than Wilmington. And so they kind of got into it just a little back and forth about which city is truly dangerous, Wilmington or Evanston, Illinois. Somebody's always putting out one of these lists about who are the most dangerous cities. And there's always something, at least one thing crazy in them, if not two. Well, we lucked out today when I was looking at the local Fox affiliate website. And here it said that there's a group called the National Council for Home Safety and Security. They put out a list of the most dangerous cities in America. No, I'm sorry to say, my little burg was not on it. But at the top of the list, to no one's surprise, is East St. Louis, and that's in Illinois. Ask any truck driver, anybody who's ever done any cross-country driving, if you're on a road that's going to take you anywhere near East St. Louis, you do a big circle around it because you just don't want to get stuck through hook or by crook, accident or on purpose in that city. Very, very dangerous town. And they listed a bunch of other towns, and what they say about their list. Here's what they said. The organization found that cities with the highest rates of violent crime tend to share two common symptoms: a high poverty rate and few chances to find a job with a good wage. If you look at this list of places big and small, maybe you heard of or not: East St. Louis, Darby Borough, Opelika, Florida City, Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, a place in Memphis, and a place in Alabama and Georgia. Well, if you look at the list, these are chocolate cities, every single one of them. Most about 70-80% black. I think I saw one there about 60%. And so, as long as we're talking about things these cities tend to share in common, do you think that's worth throwing that in the mix, that these are chocolate cities where chocolate and black crime is glorified when it's not being glorified among themselves, when it's not being ignored among the public officials and the newspapers? That's it? I mean, we can't even throw that in the mix? They went on to talk a little bit about St. Louis, and they came up with a great observation about St. Louis. They said, the group says East St. Louis's problems can be traced to the deindustrialization of the area. Parentheses, this is an alarm company. Anyway, the deindustrialization of the area in which good-paying factory jobs left and railroads were rerouted into the city, forcing residents to move away. Now, I've been to a lot of towns where there's a lot of railroads. My cousins live in a town where a railroad goes right through the middle of town. There's no bridges, no overpasses, underpasses. They're right through the middle of town. Lots of horns blaring, lots of bells ringing. And everybody just recognizes that the fact that the railroad there is kind of a sign of commerce. But somehow these people that, they have this this trade group of alarm companies. They've come up to decide that somehow having a railroad in your town causes black criminality. Having a railroad causes black people to become hyper violent. I mean, how does that work? My cousins live in a little town. There's nobody's ever clunking each other on the head in that town, Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Just because there's a railroad that goes through. I mean, how does it work? I mean, is this just another one of these things where you just kind of like sprinkle some stupid correlation out there and hope that nobody notices that what you just said was something unbelievably dumb that has absolutely no basis in fact of any kind? Matter of fact, it's kind of aggressively wrong. But then it gets even better. Quote, says the trade group, if there's one overall positive thing to draw from this list, it is that violent crime is down across the country overall. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I tend to think that it's not. But in a lot of places you just wouldn't know. You don't have any idea what kind of crime is going on in these chocolate cities. We've talked about this before and Don't Make the Black Kids Angry and lots of other places where the crime rate, black versus white crime rate is 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times greater. But when you start factoring in the other things that people use to suppress these numbers, then we can see the numbers that kind of explode. I'm thinking of stitches for snitches. Thinking of witness intimidation. Thinking of cradle to prison pipeline, where city officials come out and say they don't want to arrest any more black people. And now we go over to Baltimore, where despite themselves, they kind of like let the cat out of the bag. So in Baltimore is just the latest city where they've been installing these shot spotters, things we've talked about and Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. And one of the first places they ever installed a shot spotter, everybody was quite surprised to learn that of the 100, for every 100 shootings that shot spotter identified as taking place, only 10 between like 9 and 15 or maybe 10 were being reported to the police. There's all this crime and violence that nobody's reporting. Is that a white thing too? Or is that just something happening in just black neighborhoods? And what would happen if we started factoring those numbers into the phony baloney numbers? What would happen if we factored real shot spotter numbers into phony baloney numbers that the cops produce for us on a regular basis? Man, these numbers of black criminality already as bad as you can imagine would just explode. And so down in Baltimore, they kind of inadvertently let the cat out of the bag when they said, oh yeah, we're really going to fight crime with the shot spotter. And yeah, in Baltimore, we don't expect it to be any more different than all the other cities where they do shot spotter, where anywhere from 1 in 6 to 1 in 10 shots are reported. Wow. Oh, by the way, I'm using some B-roll now from good old 26th Street in Wilmington, Delaware, where I happen to live. I'm going to do a story about the B-roll that you're seeing now, but I couldn't fit it all into one thing. But this is something that happened out in front of my house. So here we got these alarm companies bragging about crime going down. when if it is going down, it's just a coincidence. Way more likely that it's going up. And those are the numbers. And we got people taking pride in the fact that they live in a chocolate city with lots and lots of high crime. Then we have other people just making up stories. Oh yes, a railroad came to town and that forced all the black people either to leave or to stick around and commit voluminous amounts of crime. Then you look around from, side to side and go, did anybody just realize, like, what I just said has no basis in fact whatsoever? All you can do is see reporters out there scribbling down one thing after another, one fairy tale after another. They can't scribble it down fast enough because they know that if they did any amount of scratching or digging, but even one molecule beneath the surface, they would see how wafer thin this lie is about black crime numbers, about black criminality and black victimization in this country. But they absolutely don't do that because they know if they do ask even the stupidest question to elicit even one smart, halfway decent answer, they know that's going to make a lot of black kids angry.